Hello everyone. I've been away for a while. I've been really busy. This is actually the busiest time of year for me. So it's good to be back. We're going to do a lot of talking tonight. Here's another one of my little four-legged allies. This is a ferret, or a weasel, as you call it. You can see it's got a lot of different color on him. He's not like my other weasel. My other one likes to be held. This one puts up a bit of a fight. He also has very sharp claws. He's never bit me yet. Well, I don't think he's gonna hold still while I talk, so I better put him back in his cage. Okay, everyone. Tonight's subject is going to be about a very large-scale problem in the United States, and one that sadly keeps growing. Police corruption. You know, a lot of people in this country over the years have gotten tired of it. A lot of them are fighting back. You know, the very worst example so far, in my lifetime anyways, was the uprising down in California, the LA riots, that's right, as it was called. And all because some cops decided to physically abuse a black man. Some of these cops that work in black communities are very racist. They just don't care until they're given a reason to. The whole thing started when the video was put on YouTube. A passerby filmed the whole incident, and if you watch that tape, in the very end of the tape, this was actually on TV as well as the internet, you can see that Rodney King was handcuffed face down on the ground and he was not even moving. And they still kept hitting him over the head with the clubs. They just didn't care. Well, 4 of the cops that were involved were taken to trial. But, you know, the law pretty much can do what it wants. And, nothing was done. They got off scot-free. Let's talk now about the consequences of their actions. Consequences that were widespread. LA's had some bad riots over the decades. But that was about the worst they'd ever seen. It lasted almost a week. Usually when a fight starts, it's over by the same night, but this... And you know, to tell you the truth, I don't know who's more responsible. The corrupt officers who beat King, or the corrupt judge who wouldn't convict him. In a week's time, war exploded down in LA. It was probably the worst assault of Americans on Americans since the Civil War. Over 100 people were killed. Well over 100 were seriously injured. And property damage was in the billions. All this because of police corruption. The only good thing that came out of it, the incident took place in '91, but I had a chance to watch an episode of Cops that was filmed in '97, and they were in the same district where the riot took place, and They were saying ever since the incident that police have to be very careful down there what they do. I mean, officers were constantly being fired or sued for misconduct. It's very easy now, for officers to be held accountable for what they've done, at least down in LA. And I say to those 4 officers and that judge, I'll say this: you probably just didn't care because it was a black man. But do you know a lot of those people that were killed were white people too? And did you know a lot of those people that were severely injured were white people? And a lot of the property was damaged also belonged to white people. And as I said, years later they finally started cracking down on these officers in LA that were doing things like this. Why does it always have to take bloodshed? Why does it have to take an actual war before people will open their eyes to this very wide-scale problem, one that seems to be growing every year? When I was living in Hornell with my ex Janice, we had probably the nosiest neighbor you would ever meet. His name was Tripp, Mr. Tripp. Janice had 5 children. You know, sometimes they just go out in the yard and play. Like they'd be sitting. Her 2 daughters would be sitting out in the front yard playing a board game. Well, when they do that, Tripp would call the police, and the kids had to go in the house. One time, her daughters, and at the time they were 6 and 8, were just sitting down, pushing a ball back and forth. Tripp said it was gonna break a hole in his fence. Yeah. It'd take a lot more than a little plastic ball. I mean, picture this: 2 little kids rolling a ball back and forth, and he calls the police. The police say the kids have to put their ball up and go inside. And her youngest daughter, when she was 2 years old, she was out in the front yard, and there was a flower on our side of the property, just beside the fence, and she was 2 and she liked it. She just went and smelled it and she picked it. Then we had the police come down and say, well, you gotta keep a better eye on your kids, they're damaging other property. A 2-year-old picks a flower that's on the same side of the fence as her property is? Come on. Things just got worse and worse. I couldn't even take care of the yard without him calling the police about everything. I'd mow the yard, he'd call the police. I'd pull weeds, he'd call the police. I'd cut some of the brush out of the yard, he'd call the police. No matter what I did, he kept calling the police. The police always took his side. At first I couldn't understand why. I mean, these are very silly and foolish things that he was calling them for, but they always listened to him. And then, he told me over a 5-year period that him and the mayor were on a first-name basis. They were best of friends, and all he had to do was make one phone call to get something done. And by the way the police were treating us, it sure seemed like that. The Hornell PD really needs to clean up their act. Of course, I confronted the mayor about it, and he denied it. But what else could he do? All politicians lie or they don't get elected. And for record, this incident took place back in, from 97 through 20 '01. One day, things finally came to a head. Part of the problem I was having with Tripp is the police said I can't throw him out of my yard. I had to let him come in there and harass the kids, harass me, harass Janice. One time I just got home and he was up on the porch. He had Janice in tears. The police didn't care. The only reason I never broke his face in is because he never did the one thing I would have broke his face for. He never put his hands on those kids. Of course, the police wouldn't have cared if he had. Well, I said finally, things reached a climax. I was just getting home from work one day. I was really tired, it'd just been one of those days. Well, he comes running up on the sidewalk and he's complained that I put the yard waste out for the city to pick up. Now in Hornell, regular trash pickup is on Tuesday, but if you have yard waste, like leaves, branches, stuff like that, you can stuff them in a bag and set them outside any day during the week. If you have to call the city and they'll come pick them up for you. And I tried to tell him, that was just yard waste, it wasn't trash, but he wouldn't listen. So I got tired of arguing with him. I just told him, get out of my yard. Get out of my yard. Then the police come up, and they come up and put me in handcuffs. I ended up having to spend about 3 hours that night in the city lockup. And to be honest, I hold the mayor personally responsible. He denies his involvement, but Tripp's word and the police actions, what am I supposed to believe? They arrested me for telling a man to get out of my yard. He just had the LPD wrapped right around his little finger. Said I was in jail 3 hours. Of course, the police didn't know I had a good lawyer. And I had to go to court in a couple of days. But my lawyer got the charges against me dismissed. So nothing came of it. But the bad part was on the street where me and Janice lived. I worked for about 8 different people on that street as a landscaper. And after that incident, only one of them let me work for him still. But he didn't like Bob Tripp any more than I did. So that's just the way it was. Fortunately, though, after that happened, the one guy who on the street who still would let me work for him gave me extra hours, and I ended up getting jobs, more jobs, other places in Hornell as a landscaper. So in about a week, things were back to normal. And after that, for the remaining time that I lived there, he never got near me again or the kids. Why does stuff like this go on? Why? Is that, the police only protect the people who are on a first name basis with the mayor? Is that the way it works? Of course, the police told me the mayor had nothing to do with it, but then how else did this man have one LPD wrapped right around his little finger? How? His words and the police actions. They made me believe the legal system in Hornell has a very serious problem. The main problem seems to be with people at City Hall showing favoritism to their best friends. And last of all, tonight, let's talk about kids who seem to get special privileges. In one of my other videos, we talked a little about this. When me and Janice would take the kids to a play in Hornell, at the Hornell High School, or even at the middle school, her two kids, her one daughter and son, usually were in the play. And we'd have the pamphlet, of course, they'd pass out of the door. And you know something? It was never any coincidence. The people who got the lead roles, people who got to be number one, were the kids who had parents that were police officers, firemen, or city officials. But you know, I want to say something to the Hornell PD. What about the people who deserve to be number one? What about the people who earn the right to be number one? What about them? I'm telling you guys something. You keep that up, you know, one day you're gonna make the same mistake the officers in LA did. You're gonna push somebody a little too far. Hornell PD has a lot to learn. Now it's been, how long now? 12 years almost since I've left Hornell. Well, not since I left Hornell, since I've moved off that street. Which, for the sake of the other people on that street, I won't mention. But you know, stuff like this, how far is it going to go? When is somebody going to actually make a stand? When is someone going to tell the police, you know, this has got to stop? Everybody should have the same rights no matter who they are. And actually, I said that was going to be the last of it, but come to think of it, there's one other thing I want to mention. Janice's son, Travis, was, this was in 2002, riding his bike down past where the American Association and the Elks Club are, right beside each other. There's a driveway that goes in between. Now, some 16-year-old maniac came barreling out of that driveway like a bat out of hell and ran into Travis, knocked him right off his bike. He was very young at the time, but thank God he wasn't hurt too bad. Just a few bumps and bruises. They took him to the hospital, had him checked out, and he was alright. His bike was a total. The officer on the scene said that it was the driver's fault for what happened. So Janice had to take a paper down to the Hornell PD. If they signed it, the girl who was driving that car was going to have to pay for Travis's ambulance ride, hospital bill, something for his pain and suffering, and buy him a new bike. But when she got down to the station, they wouldn't sign it. They said they made a mistake, and I couldn't figure out first what the mistake was. And then I did find out. The girl who was driving that car was related to one of the police officers in Hornell. Actually, she was related to two of them. Well, I'm not sure if she was their daughter, one of their daughters, or one of their nieces, but there was a relationship. So those two officers used their badges to get their family member out of trouble. How many times have we seen this go on? Officers who do that are corrupt and have no business being a police officer. Officers who use their badges for their family's own personal gain should be held accountable for their actions. They should be charged as criminals, which they are, and they should be punished for it. So everybody, think about this. If you've been a victim of police corruption, I'd like to hear from you. Put a video on yourself. The more people that, are willing to stand up and say that this has got to stop, maybe together we can put a stop to it. So, for now, this is Keith Hopkins saying so long till next time.